Although the Second World War lasted a mere 6 years, it stands as the deadliest conflict in human history. Engulfing all of the world's superpowers and the majority of nations at the time, it claimed a staggering 50 to 85 million lives in the relentless struggle against the spread of fascism. But what if it had concluded differently? What if the Axis powers had triumphed, with Hitler and Japan's expansionist ambitions fully realized? Would America have survived? In Hitler's eyes, Americans were a race of mongrels, a melting pot of diversity that he hated with a burning fervor. But what if his hatred had led to a world where Nazi Germany had won, and his vision became a haunting reality? In this chilling alternate reality, Germany stands unchallenged as a superpower. The Soviet Union no longer exists, and the British Empire lies in ruins. Millions have met their end in Hitler's brutal purges, while countless others toil away as slaves in his labor camps. Yet, Hitler's ultimate ambition remains unchanged: the total obliteration of the United States of America. He perceives Americans as an undesirable mix of races, a stain to be wiped from the world. This video explains what would have happened if Hitler had won World War II. Let's begin. Establishment of Hitler's master race. Hitler had a grand vision even before World War II began. He aimed to establish an Aryan empire across Central and Eastern Europe. He believed that Europe's vulnerability lay in immigration and championed ethnocentrism as the solution. According to his warped ideology, fair-haired, blue-eyed people of Northern European origin occupied the highest rung of a racial hierarchy, while Jewish people and Slavs in Central and Eastern Europe were considered inferior. However, modern genetics has shown that the notion of racial purity lacks scientific validity. In fact, research by evolutionary scientists and geneticists suggests that racially diverse parents tend to produce healthier offspring, both physically and intellectually. Even during the rise of Nazism, some scientists were compelled to conceal their research, which contradicted Hitler's ideas of a master race filled with fallacies and contradictions. Complete genocide of Jews. Hitler made his murderous intentions towards the Jewish people unequivocally clear during World War II with a military plan known as the final solution to the Jewish question. This plan aimed to exterminate all Jewish people, not just in Europe, but globally. The Nazi Party publicly vilified Jews as the only outsiders in Europe. Initially, the German government treated Jews unfairly in an attempt to force them to emigrate. However, as war broke out, the Nazis initiated a full-scale genocide of all Jews, with Hitler's explicit goal of annihilating the entire Jewish race. By the time Germany was defeated, nearly 6 million Jews had perished in the Holocaust. Hitler's virulent anti-Semitism resonated with many Germans who felt humiliated after World War I and blamed Jews for their nation's defeat. The United Kingdom would cease to exist. Had Hitler emerged victorious, the United Kingdom would have faced a bleak fate. Operation Sea Lion, Germany's plan to invade England instead of the USSR, came close to becoming a reality. While historians debate the outcome, it's likely that the USSR would eventually join the fight against Hitler. Nevertheless, in the scenario where Germany conquered the UK, Hitler intended to transform Great Britain and Ireland into economic and military outposts, safeguarding Europe from Western threats, mainly the United States. Hitler refrained from invading the UK primarily due to Winston Churchill's resolve, which he knew would not tolerate German aggression. Medical experiments would be the norm. Under a regime that disregarded human life, gruesome scientific experiments became justifiable in the name of research. Both Japan and Germany conducted horrifying experiments on prisoners. The Nazis delved into 3 main categories of human experimentation: combat-related, pharmaceutical, and genetic testing. Jewish prisoners endured surgical procedures without anesthesia, served as subjects for head injury trials, and were subjected to tests involving hypothermia, chemical exposure, radiation, and more. If they survived, which was rare, they were often executed. The Japanese conducted similar experiments, primarily on Chinese and Russian captives, through Unit 731, a research and development unit that conducted chemical, biological, and radiological experiments. Freedom of speech would vanish. In a world where Germany emerged victorious, dissent and freedom of speech would be crushed. Any questioning of the regime would be intolerable, and a fascist government would suppress industry, commerce, media, art, and religion. History would be rewritten, and only nationalism and blind loyalty would be acceptable. Citizens would likely be surveilled through cameras, microphones, and other means, reminiscent of George Orwell's 1984. Hitler's face would be everywhere. Much like the omnipresence of images of North Korea's dear leader, a victorious Nazi Germany would have likely worshipped Hitler to some extent. Dissent or disrespect would indicate opposition, and images of Hitler would likely be prominently displayed in public spaces. Desecration of his image would likely carry severe penalties. USA would be half the size, partially owned by Japan. The geographical advantage of the United States has always been a significant factor in its foreign relations, with friendly neighbors to the north and a relatively benign continent to the south. Any potential invaders had to traverse vast distances to reach American soil. Invasion, though possible, was a daunting prospect. If the United States were to be defeated, it would likely have to be through a catastrophic event like a nuclear attack. However, both Germany and Japan had plans for the United States in case of their victory. Japan, in particular, had grandiose designs for the western coast of the United States. Their intention was to establish it as a puppet state and create a fortified military zone that would allow them to dominate the Pacific. Historians have speculated on how this would have reshaped the U.S. landscape. One widely discussed scenario, as depicted in The Man in the High Castle, a novel exploring alternative history, suggested that Japan would assert control over the western states of Washington, Oregon, and California, effectively making them a puppet state. The Rocky Mountain states, including Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico, would serve as a neutral buffer zone. Meanwhile, the eastern part of the United States would fall under Nazi occupation. Such a transformation of the United States would have had profound geopolitical, cultural, and economic implications, reshaping the course of history in ways that are difficult to fathom. Russia, formerly USSR, would become Northern Germany. Hitler's infamous autobiography Mein Kampf outlined his desire for more living space for the German people, much of which lay in Russia. Hitler viewed the Soviet Union as inferior and planned to exile its population to Siberia, while handing over the land to the Germans. Russian Jews were to be systematically killed, and Slavs were to be enslaved. The Soviet Union, with its growing communist influence, posed a significant threat to Germany. Conquering it would provide Hitler with a wealth of resources, including valuable oil fields, propelling Germany to superpower status. If the USSR had fallen, other nations might have followed, succumbing to the might of Germany and Japan. However, Hitler's grandiose plan for northern Germany was cut short due to inadequate planning and harsh conditions. Most of Western Europe would be Germany. France would have been one of the first countries to fall under German control, given Hitler's long-standing plan. Germany intended to annex the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Switzerland, with non-compliant populations and those not fitting Hitler's vision of the master race facing exile, enslavement, or extermination. The rich cultural heritage of these nations would be lost, with no more art or architectural history in Paris, beer culture in Belgium, or the scenic parks of Amsterdam. All these regions would become part of Germany, serving as new territories for the master race, suppressing tourism, visitors, and immigrants. Imperial Japan would own part of China and most of Pacific Asia. While Germany often dominates discussions of World War II, Japan played a crucial role as a brutal Axis power. Japan, like Germany, sought territorial expansion. Japan was already embroiled in a conflict with China when World War II officially erupted, stretching its military resources thin. Speculations by historians suggest that if Japan had succeeded in taking the Philippines and avoided a direct attack on the United States homeland, they might have had more success in imperializing the Far East. Japan also had its eyes on Siberia and regarded the USSR as a rival, partly due to its support for China. A victorious Japan in World War II would have resulted in a significantly larger nation than the islands we know today. The State of Israel would have never existed. Hitler's horrifying plan, the final solution, aimed at exterminating all Jews, not just in Europe, but globally. This plan posed a grave threat to the establishment of the State of Israel. Even if the United Nations had existed and partitioned land for Israel, Hitler, in power, would have had an easy target, since he would have known the whereabouts of European Jewish refugees. With Italy colonizing northern Africa, Germany controlling Europe, and Japan exerting influence in the Middle East, preventing Hitler from destroying Israel would have been challenging. Moreover, it's likely that the State of Israel would have never been created in the first place, as there would have been no Jewish refugees or survivors willing to establish it. Germany may have achieved nuclear superiority. Some scholars suggest that one reason Germany did not achieve nuclear superiority before World War II was because they exiled a significant portion of their scientists. In 1933, every Jewish scientist in STEM academia was dismissed and stripped of their credentials. A substantial number of remaining German scientists were conscripted to fight in the war. This mass exodus of scientists hindered Germany's progress. Before the war, Germany had made groundbreaking scientific discoveries, leading some to speculate that they were close to developing an atomic bomb, although the validity of these claims is debated. Had Germany become a nuclear state during World War II, it could have altered the course of history, potentially shifting the Cold War's focus from the USA-USSR rivalry to a USA-Germany standoff. Enslavement of Eastern Europe and non-Aryan populations. Recognizing that it was impossible to eliminate everyone who did not meet his definition of the master race, Hitler's alternative solution was to enslave those remaining populations. These individuals would become property, owned and controlled by the Aryan people. General Plan Ost, the Nazis' strategy for European domination, aimed to retain 14 million racially undesirables for enslavement. This would have entailed forced labor on farms to sustain the German population. Hitler's territorial expansion would have led to the enslavement of countless individuals, reshaping the demographics and power dynamics of Europe and beyond. Now, we would like to hear from you. Do you think you could live in the USA if Hitler had emerged victorious in World War II? Please share your insights and thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on more compelling episodes of military history. Together, let's continue to learn.